Welcome to the October 27th regular meeting of the East Bay MUD Board of Directors. Why is it doing that? In accordance with, due to COVID-19 and in accordance with the latest Alameda County health orders and with the governor's executive order N2920, suspending portions of the Brown Act, this meeting is being conducted remotely. In compliance with these orders, a physical location has not been provided for the meeting, and these measures will only apply during the period in which state or local health officials, public health officials have imposed or recommended social distancing. The Sustainability and / Energy Committee and the Finance Administration Committee both met this morning and will report out under item 17. All of our directors are participating via Zoom. If you would do roll call, please, Madam Secretary.
Director Coleman.
Present.
Director Katz. Director Linney.
Here.
Director McIntosh.
Here.
Director Mellon.
Present.
Director Patterson.
Present.
President Young.
I am here.
I have one, Director Katz just said he's having technology issues, but he will be in the meeting shortly.
Okay. We have a couple of, I'm sorry, I'm getting ahead of myself. Let's stand for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Okay, moving along, we have a couple of presentations by our general manager. Clifford, if you would like to take it away, please.
I will do the first one. So this is the Toastmasters Corporate Recognition Award. The district is honored to receive the Toastmasters International Corporate Club Award for 2019-2020. This award recognizes the district's Toastmasters Club leadership and communication activities, in addition to implementing employee development programs such as speechcraft trainings, intern training, presenting employee specialty programs, mentoring employees, and community outreach. The district's club was chartered in July 1977 as a professional development program to develop and enhance communication and presentation skills for staff. This recognition is a jewel to our club's crown, a testimony to the great work the club contributes within East Bay MUD and our community. Joining us are the club's executive committee members, Don Benson, Michael Bergstrom, Angela Curtis, Ron Holman, Elliot Johnson, Vivian Ling Wong, Laura Salangsang, Stella Tan, and Amy Yen. Now I'd like to turn it over to Naomi Takeuchi, International Director, Region 1, to present the award to our board and club members.
Hello, my name's Naomi Takeuchi. I just want to make sure you can hear me okay?
We can hear
Yep.
you.
Okay, because I only see a screen of an award, which is great, because this is the East Bay Municipal Utility District that we're recognizing. My name's Naomi Takeuchi. I am the International Director serving Region 1. There are 14 regions throughout the world. We have 364,000 members in 145 countries and 16,200 clubs. For East Bay Municipal Utility District as a corporation to be recognized is a significant achievement for you. Just to give you a sense of my region is that I serve the region from Alaska all the way down the coast through British Columbia to Northern California. So District 57 is the district that you're in, and then east to Utah. I recently gave a similar award to Best Buy Canada and also to KPMG in Vancouver. And I regret I was not able to be there in May because that was the time that I was to come and deliver this to you personally. So I'm here to present this award to you because East Bay Municipal Utility District is also very touching to me because you have a club which is called the TLC Club, for Toastmasters Leadership Club, and I've attended that in the past. You are very instrumental in growing our leaders here, and we wanted to appreciate you. And thank you again as a representative of the Toastmasters organization. Back to you.
Thank you very much. Clifford, or do we have folks speaking?
No.
No. Okay. Well, congratulations, everyone. Well-deserved. Keep up the good work. And thank you very much for joining us to present the award. I think it means a lot to our employees. Thank you.
You're welcome. And I'm here in Seattle and happy to answer any questions that you might have. And if not, I'd be happy to say goodbye at this point.
I think we're good. Thank you very
Yeah.
much.
Okay,
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
All right, thank you. And thanks again to all of the
Thank you.
dedicated members.
So next up, so for the 15th consecutive year, the district has received the Certificate of Achievement for Excellence in Financial Reporting Award from the Government Finance Officers Association for its comprehensive annual financial report. The report is judged by an impartial panel to meet the high standards of the program. The Certificate of Achievement is the highest form of recognition in the area of governmental accounting and financial reporting, and its attainment represents a significant accomplishment by a government and its management. The core team responsible for final production of the report consists of Yenny Coburn, Lawrence Fan, Matt Hauk, David Sue, Stephanie Toy, and Melody Wang. These individuals demonstrate teamwork and integrity in financial reporting, which exemplifies the values of the district. In addition to the core team, all of the accounting staff and various staff throughout the district provided information to ensure a clean audit and an award-winning report. We also want to recognize Scott Klein, our retired controller, for his leadership and contribution to the development of the fiscal year 2019 report.
Thank you. Do we have anybody from finance accepting the award? Sophia or anybody to say anything? No?
Well, I'm on, so I'll just say thank you to the team, the accounting team, for all of your hard work. Thank you, Andrea, in kind of embracing as she's come on board, and I look forward to seeing all the great things that you're all going to do together. So thank you, all of you.
Yep. Congratulations. 15 years in a row is quite an accomplishment.
Quite an accomplishment, yes.
So thank you. Congratulations and keep up the great work.
Absolutely.
Okay, next up we have our consent calendar, and I'm guessing that we're pulling item 50. Oh, what did I miss, Risha? Oh, no announcements from close. Wait a minute.
Announcements from closed session.
We don't always have this part, but so we have no
Public comment.
announcements from closed session, and we have public comment first. I'm sorry. His presentations always get me a little bit discombobulated. Okay, if there are no announcements from closed session, we'll now move on to public comment. And if members of the public wish to speak on agenda or non-agenda items, please use the raise your hand feature in Zoom. Comments on non-agenda items will be heard at the beginning of the meeting, and comments on agenda items will be heard when the item is up for consideration. When prompted, please state your name, your affiliation, if applicable, and the topic that you will be addressing. The secretary will call each speaker in the order that she receives them, and each speaker is allotted 3 minutes to speak. However, I will have the discretion to amend that time based on the number of speakers. The secretary will keep track of your time and inform you when your allotted time has concluded. Madam Secretary, do we have anyone registering for public comment?
I have one person for public comment, Edna Leonard.
Okay.
And I have Joey Smith. So we have 2 people for public comment. Let me just scroll one more time. All right, and so we will start. I think Edna raised her hand by accident. Her hand went down. And if you want to speak under public comment, please raise your hand again. Otherwise, we will go to Joey Smith. Okay, I think that was an accident, so we will go with
Okay.
Joey Smith.
Can't hear. Oh, there she is.
Okay, your time has started.
Thank you very much, Joey Smith. President,
Go ahead.
she's saying she can't hear me.
She should, do you have the podium muted?
Can you hear me, President Young?
Can you hear?
Okay, all right, yeah, she can hear me now. As a former president of our East Bay Mud Toastmasters Club, I was under the impression that our current president was going to speak. Getting that award really, really, really means something very significant and special to us. East Bay Mud has been wonderfully supportive, especially through our board and our SMT of our Toastmasters Club. We have provided many services for Toastmasters as hosting many events here. As was mentioned, the Toastmasters Leadership Club that happens on Wednesdays. We have Speechcraft, which originated with Toastmasters that now we use in our employee development. And many, many of our members have used this not only to improve their method of communicating with people, but also they have built upon their leadership skills, because it's not just a one-way thing with Toastmasters. We work on that as well, and many of them have gotten promoted. So we want to thank you for your continuous support through the years, and we look forward to making you proud of us even further. We were not expecting this, but we were thrilled to get it. Also, just briefly, just a reminder to everyone that October is Breast Cancer Awareness Month, and we know we have many warriors who are living through it and recovering, and we have those who we remember their fight. Also, it's Domestic Violence Awareness Month. No one should ever be in fear of the ones that they love and where they live. So if anyone needs any assistance with either of those two matters, you can always call 211. That is our county-wide information and assistance hotline. And if anyone wants more information on that, you can talk to me separately. Thank you.
Thank you, Joey. Thank you. Okay. So no more public comment, is that right, Risha?
Let me just scroll one more time. There is no more public comment.
Okay, and if someone does raise a hand during the agenda, please speak up and let me know, or I'll blow right past it. We'll now move on to consent calendar, and we'll be pulling, as per our tradition, item 15, although Frank, I might want to actually grab this one from you.
Please, go ahead.
And I also want to pull item 6. Wait, not 6. Which one is the spoil? Crap. Which one is our spoil? Oh, wait, that's not what I thought it was. Just item 15.
Marguerite, I'll move 1 through 14. This is John.
Second,
Okay, moved and seconded. Can we have a roll call? Moved by Director Coleman, seconded by Director Patterson. Could we have a roll call vote, please?
Director Coleman,
Yes.
Director Katz,
yes.
Director Linney,
Aye.
Director McIntosh,
yes,
Director Mellon,
Yes.
Director Patterson,
Yes,
President Young.
Yes.
And I would most certainly cede the floor to you, President Young.
Okay, thank you. So Clifford, do you want to just make the announcement and then,
Yeah. I'm very pleased to recommend Dave Briggs for the Director of Operations and Maintenance position. I personally know that it's a very challenging position, and you have oversight over about half the district. I will say before joining the district, Dave has worked at the Contra Costa Water District and the SFPUC, and I actually worked with Dave many, many years ago when he was at the SFPUC, and we were working on the Hayward Intertie. And I'll say for the last 3 years, I've had the pleasure to work with him, and he's dealt with many challenging construction projects, as well as operational and personnel issues. So I'm thrilled to bring this for consideration.
I would like to move the item.
President Young, we have one
Yeah.
public comment for the
Ah.
item before you take
Okay.
the vote.
Okay, well, let's actually put the motion in motion and then,
Okay.
And we'll let Dave speak.
You're assuming it's
we need a
Dave.
second, actually.
Second.
I'll second.
Okay, that Doug is seconding. So moved by me and seconded by Doug. And then let's have the public comment, and then I'll make my comment, and then we can vote.
Okay.
Did you have somebody for public comment?
I apologize. I received a card and I thought it was for public comment on the item, but it was just for the record. So there is no public comment. You can go ahead and do the roll call vote.
No, I'm going to say something yeah, we'll do the vote and then I'll say something. Okay.
All right. So we're going to get this. Directors Coleman,
Yes.
Director Katz,
Yes.
Director Lenny,
Aye.
Director McIntosh,
Yes.
Director Mellon,
Yes.
Director Patterson,
Yes.
President Young.
Yes. So I grabbed this because long before I became an East Bay MUD director, most of you know that I was involved with Clean Water Action. I was the California director and had the dubious distinction of being the co-chair of the CalFed Bay Delta Water Quality Committee, and with somebody from CCWD named Greg Gartrell, who some folks in the audience know. And our charge was to figure out, oh gosh, I even invented this acronym and I can't remember it. It was sort of basically the best alternative to a canal was the idea of ways to improve regional water quality through transfers and sort of regional water solutions, north and south. And as part of that, had to really understand what the different water quality characteristics and nature was of various water supplies. And so we did a number of tours of different facilities. And among those was the facilities at Contra Costa Water District. And Dave was one of our tour guides, or maybe the tour guide, and just immediately found him to be engaging and knowledgeable and able to put the science of water treatment and water quality and dealing with funky source water, which Contra Costa certainly had at the time, maybe more so than they do now, sort of through its paces to be consumable by customers. And ever since then, during my time at CalFed, working on the CalFed process, would often, ask Dave questions and always got good answers. And so when he came to East Bay MUD, I was delighted and now very delighted to congratulate you on your promotion to Clifford's old job, and hope you might say a few words if you're there. I hope you're there, because otherwise, why did I just do all that nice
He's
stuff?
here.
I'm here. I'm trying to move this move it to the left. Thank you, Joey.
It's very, yeah.
Maybe I'm using too much.
I have a lot of confidence in his O&M abilities.
Yeah. I don't want to break it.
Or you did. Yeah.
Thank you. See, that was so easy.
It's real easy.
It was the right touch. Thank you, President Young, for those comments. I enjoyed working with you back then. I really enjoy working with you and the rest of the board today. I appreciate your confidence in your remarks. I look forward to this role. I've got the sleeves rolled up, figuratively. I'm inspired. I have a lot of energy. I want to do the right thing and serve you and the customers and the employees as well as I can. Thank you to Clifford and all the managers who've helped me acclimate to East Bay Mud the past few years. I mean, there's a lot to learn. There's a lot of history. And I want to thank my wife, Mary, for being very supportive. I really appreciate all that. Thank you.
Great. Thank you so much. Okay. Moving along. I think we're right to the general manager's report, if I'm not mistaken.
You're correct.
All right. Well, take it away.
So we have, I have two items for you today. The first is to share information on the financial impacts of COVID-19. Just as a reminder, this past April, we did provide an update on the potential impacts of to the budget. And so today we're going to provide you an update on what we've seen since April and our plans for FY21 and the FY22-23 budget cycle. And Sophia Skoda, Director of Finance, will make the presentation.
Good afternoon, Board of Directors and General Manager Jan Clifford. So yes, I'm here to give this update on the fiscal impacts of COVID-19 as we know them today. So moving on to the next slide. Just as a recap, when we were with you in April, the projected financial impacts were to things like the service area economy, were to things like lower water demand that could come and has come in certain sectors, increased delinquencies, possibility for decreased development, and whether or not there was going to be suspension or delay in any of our capital projects. At the time, of course, we said it was too early to measure those impacts with any accuracy, and to some extent that still remains. We know what some of the impacts are, but things continue to change in the national economy and in our local economy as well, and so we continue to bend and flow with what comes. So moving on to the next slide, what have been some of the observations since April 2020? So since the last time that we talked about this specifically. So overall, water demand and development have remained steady. So we have seen a contraction in commercial water. There's a shuttering of stores that has shown up in that sector in particular. But in the residential sector, for example, it was a warm summer, and we definitely saw use up in that sector. And obviously, most people were working from home, and I'm sure that contributes to a few additional toilet flushes, et cetera. Unemployment in our service area still is slow to recover, and as of September, our delinquencies have grown by approximately $5 million. Just to put that into perspective, that's about $2,500 for each one of our employees. We also have seen an increase in our customer assistance program, and I believe that Andrew's going to be talking a little bit more about that later. But it's the numbers are up at least 17% since January. So with regards to how we're doing, the fact that we've really been focused on long-term financial planning for a number of years now have really lessened the severity of the fiscal impacts. This is a very different landscape than we found ourselves in after 2008, 2009, when we were really having to immediately look to slashing and holding positions, not filling them, things like that. The focus on long-term financial planning has helped us feel confident that we're able to stay the course and stay steady with where we are as of now. So again, we had this morning at the Finance Committee, the financial results from fiscal year 20 were presented, and they were, they are positive, but there still is a great deal of uncertainty relative to the pandemic and how that's going to flow. There are elections coming up, as I'm sure we're all acutely aware. And so, there's a great possibility that the impacts will be larger in FY21 than they are, than they have been. Next slide. So with respect to fiscal impacts to the economy, there was a New York Times article October 12th that was talking about the number of unemployed shrinking, but more people becoming permanently unemployed. So what does that mean for our numbers? Looking at the California job market, a recent UCLA study projects a 2-year cycle to return to employment levels, that we saw prior to the pandemic. And this San Francisco Economic Recovery Task Force notes that more than 2,000 businesses have indicated that they are permanently closed. And so there are impacts to obviously sales tax revenue and others. Moving on to the next slide. So with respect to the financial markets themselves, you may remember that right at the beginning, as the COVID pandemic was declared, we had a spike in our commercial paper short-term rates, and we weren't sure exactly, what that would look like as the days and weeks went forward. Thankfully, those rates returned relatively quickly to normal, and they've remained that way. And I put normal in quotes just because, markets are variable, and so those change. We also know that interest income is declining. So again, we shared this morning at our finance committee that at this point our funds are earning less than somewhere in the realm of 0.4, so less than 0.5%, less than 0.5%, and that's continuing to decline as some of our holdings mature that we're yielding, higher levels of interest. The federal funds rate's near zero. I'm sure you've seen all of this in the news, the national news. So those are the things that we're seeing ourselves in the near term with respect to impacts from the markets. Next slide. So with regards to our expectations for fiscal year 21, I've already said that the range of impacts is, of course, not fully known, and we're not going to know. There is an expectation broadly that there's going to be an extended period of time, with regards to recovery. And we also conducted a brief survey of what other state and local agencies are finding and how they are managing through the conditions that we've just described. Next slide. So with respect to projected or actual impacts at other agencies, BART, for example, down the street is currently projecting a loss of revenue of close to $1 billion over the next 3 years. There are also increased additional expenses of just under $50 million for fiscal year 21, and they've definitely reduced their levels of service. The City of Oakland currently is projecting about $100 million budget deficit for fiscal year 21, and so that is resulting in a hiring freeze. And they are having to use rainy day funds and reduce some of their budgets, including police. The City of Concord is facing almost a $15 million deficit, and there are layoffs, service cuts, and other reductions under discussion currently. The City of Hayward is currently using reserves for their fiscal year 21 budget, and employee furloughs are being employed. Next slide. I think most of us are probably aware of the state of California's labor agreements where pay has been cut by 9.23%. So that's the equivalent of about 2 days of work per month. And Metropolitan Water District of Southern California recently implemented new spending reductions and a cost-cutting plan that includes a moratorium on non-emergency or any unbudgeted spending. We also know that a lot of local agencies have deferred planned rate increases, including Marin Municipal Water District, Alameda Municipal Power, Castro Valley Sanitary District, and others. As we had shared previously in April, water utilities across the U.S. Continue to anticipate fiscal impacts, and at that time, those impacts were estimated to be on the order of 17% at that time, due to the net impact of revenue decrease and cost increase. Next slide. So with respect to current district actions, staff continues to carefully monitor revenues. So our water sales, customer payments, all of those key pieces of information that we track. And per board direction, continuing to look for ways to provide targeted support for customers in need and expanding our customer assistance. I think Andrew will talk more about this as well, but you've heard about this, and hopefully many of you have seen it out in the community. Here's an example of an ad that's out there that's gone out through the community in a whole bunch of different ways. The one that I passed by is at a bus shelter on my way home. And we are continuing our needed investments in our system, which supports our local economy and continues to do the work that we need to do on our aging infrastructure on our system. So we have, at this point, we are projecting that we are going to continue our decreased borrowing plans for our capital program, because just because COVID is in effect right now doesn't mean that the risk of an earthquake or other disaster has gotten any lower. We've all seen what's happened with wildfires over the last weeks and months. So we believe this continues to be kind of prudent action that we continue to want to take. Next slide. With regards to fiscal 22 and 23, at this point, the priorities that we're seeing, and we'll be discussing this more, of course, when we start our first budget workshop in January, are continued investments in and maintenance of this aging infrastructure that we inherited, and a plan for long-term financial stability. So continuing that plan that we've already started and continuing to be clear about what all those pieces are. And at this point, the themes that we've been sort of discussing as a finance team and at the SMT have been, cautious but realistic, and also always flexible. So that's where we are right now. Next slide. So with respect to our prior fiscal 22 and 23 rate forecast, at this point in our biennial budget cycles, we've been showing 5-year rate forecasts. And so when we provided the 20 and 21 budget, the projected rate increases at that time for 22 and 23 were 5% in each year for water and 4% in each year for wastewater. Obviously, the impact of the pandemic may have to change that rate target. Next slide. What would be the impact of lower rate increases? Obviously, to achieve a lower rate increase, you have to cut the budget. I mean, that's the way that it works. So unless you want to use funds that you have in reserve, of course. At this point, we don't see that any significant increases in staff are financially feasible. So moving on to the next slide, next steps. We continue development of the budget, working collaboratively using Teams and all of our phones and all the new tools to work collaboratively to develop the best possible budget to continue to provide high quality water and wastewater services to our ratepayers. And all these, under consideration of the board guidance that you provide us, economic indicators both inside and outside of our service area, the actions of our peer agencies, and studies and recommendations from some of the networks that we are a part of, including the American Water Works Association and AMWA. Next slide. Just to remind everyone of our key budget dates, the first budget workshop will be held on January the 26th. The second will be held on March 23rd, and we have held a slotted date, if needed, of April 13th for a third budget workshop. And that at that point, we would be sending out Proposition 218 notices to hold a public hearing for any consideration of any increases in rates. So with that, I would be happy to take any questions.
Any questions from board members? Like I got John and Frank.
Yeah, real quickly, today Contra Costa moved to the orange tier. I think that's where Alameda is. Have there been studies done by other utilities as counties move to a safer level of activity, uptick in terms of water sales, development? I wasn't aware of that until just half an hour ago, what happened in Contra Costa County in terms of SCC funds, things of that nature. Has anybody been looking ahead as California, which is moving in the right direction like the rest of the country? And if we continue to move in that direction, the positive impact it may have to the business environment.
Director Coleman, I haven't heard of any studies like that. That sounds very interesting. And certainly, many of us on the SMT are a part of several networks. So we'll try to get that question out and see if there are any indications of what might be happening. But I haven't heard of any specific studies. Thank you.
Thank you.
Sophia, I have a concern when I see no additional, what looked like was no additional staffing or no increase in staffing. But the last time we had a severe economic crunch, one of the things I cautioned on was, you got to have a core level of staffing. And if you don't, then you get into a position where, and I'll use out in the field, where you're no longer doing preventative maintenance, you're doing catch up, and you're doing which is the worst one. And I want to strongly recommend that we look at, our infrastructure has got a lot of holes in it, literally. And I want us to be sure that we don't put ourselves in a position where we're playing catch up all the time, but instead we're continuing all these things that are helping us to catch leaks before they become breaks.
Thank you, Director Coleman. And that's exactly right. During the last recession, we contracted basically by not filling positions, and we got down to somewhere in the realm of somewhere between 1,300 and 1,400 staff. And today we're somewhere in the realm of 1,900 staff, and we do not want to go back there. So we are continuing to fill all positions. Any budget that we would recommend would recommend that we do not use that same tool of kind of attrition and not filling. We completely agree with you.
There's a minimum staffing level so that things continue to work. And years of experience doing what I do for a living, I always try to tell employers, just like here, get that number figured out so that you stay up with the things that need to be taken care of and you're not running from behind. So I'll be looking at that when we're talking on the budget in January.
So if I could follow up on just that, just to be clear, when you say no increase in positions, we're talking about additional positions, but not talking about positions that aren't filled right now. Those.
That's correct.
Right.
Right, and I think if I'm remembering the slide, what it actually said was if we wanted to have a lower rate increase, that's what we would need to do. So you're forecasting actually that at this point anyway, we hope that we're still on track for the rate increases that we've proposed, and that if the board wanted to go lower, recognizing, sort of an ongoing slow economic recovery or other, things to take into account, that then what we'd have to do is cut costs and deal with lower staffing levels. That's how I took that slide in any case. Is that correct? Or
yeah, I think that's a fair summary in general. What I would say moving forward though is that we do want to make sure, and we'll be presenting all of this in January, that when we look at the next budget cycle, that we're if we were to add 100 positions or something, that would obviously blow even, we wouldn't be able to do that under the projected rate increases. There's only so much that's built into the existing, projected rate increases, and significant increases in position aren't a part of that. So we want to set realistic expectations for what everyone will see in January when we bring forward the budget, and also note exactly what you point out, Director Young, which is any significant rate increase below what we're talking about would have to, reconsider. And, the number one thing, I believe I've heard stories from back in the 30s during the Depression that EBMUD never let anyone go. And I certainly don't want to be the finance director that ever does anything that would be any different from that. And we want to make sure that we get through this strange period of time, and that we do that while supporting our local economy and while making the investments that we need to make, and while hopefully even making progress on operations and maintenance. So absolutely.
Certainly not in our 100th year.
Yes.
We've never laid off one person in the entire history of EBMUD. And I would love it if we could continue that. Yeah, we reduced staff. They even did some work sharing for a little while, but they never laid off one person. And I think that's an incredible record. You don't lose your institutional memory, and you keep people know that they're at a place that wants them.
Director Katz has his hand up.
I'm on mute. I see Director Katz and also Director Patterson.
If I understand the sentiment of the presentation, it's to advise us about what's happening in our surroundings, what's happening with our customers, what's happening with our neighbors in local government, and to understand that it would be a very difficult time, infeasible time, as you say, to increase staffing by 100 positions by an extreme. I hope that I certainly agree with what Director Mellon is saying, that it's about sustainability of our infrastructure. We need to make sure that we are keeping our system in a state of good repair for future years, future generations, and to not lose the progress that we've made. We actually need to, this is an important time now more than ever to stay the course on keeping our infrastructure in that state of good repair, or fixing the aging infrastructure that we've been challenged by. I would not expect this to mean that we would be so inflexible that we wouldn't add one position for a very important service here or there. So the budget is a very in-depth topic. So I look forward to an in-depth presentation in January. And I'm glad that the general manager has proposed additional public outreach opportunities for the district and the board to engage in.
Thank you.
Okay, and Director Patterson?
Yes, I just wanted to chime in and say that the careful review by the Finance Committee always is keeping many of the items that we have just talked about in mind. And one that I wanted to particularly call to the board's attention and remind them of. COVID has caused some effects, and both from the national budget and from the state budget, some of the impacts imposed on the district are before us. And we hope to get some relief from there. I've heard staff say that they're monitoring that. We got that in the legislative committee hearings of what is being monitored there. But every opportunity for any assistance that we can get from federal or state level, we're looking forward to putting those into play long before we talk about any reduction in staff.
Thank you. Okay, there's no action on this item. Thank you for the report, Sophia. And we look forward, or not look forward to the budget workshop in January, but I'm sure we'll all be learn a lot and help us make our determinations. So thank you
very much.
Thank you, Sophia. So moving on, I know this next item is very important to the board and me as well. And it's looking at alternatives to water shutoffs for delinquent single-family residential accounts. And as the board is aware that we don't shut off water service for multifamily residential accounts. We're just talking about this, but COVID-19 really has been a terrible crisis worldwide. And it certainly highlighted the importance of water. In March, as we all know, before the governor issued his executive order, we suspended water shutoffs to our customers. In the months since then, we collected a lot of data and learned from the actions that we took. So Andrew Lee, the manager of Customer and Community Services, will present an alternative to water shutoffs that balance the human right to water and the customer's responsibility for the cost of services that we deliver. And we want to share with you all the data that we have, the risks, and the communities that would be most affected if and when the governor ends his executive order on shutoffs. And so today we're looking for feedback on our proposal. And so with this introduction, I will pass it on to Andrew to begin his presentation.
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Great. Good afternoon, President Young and members of the board. Well, I just want to start by saying that the district has a really long and proud history about advancing policy that providing long-term benefits to our customers and our community. And in 2011, the board passed a resolution to provide authority to place liens on multifamily properties for delinquent bills. And we were able to use that authority to collect unpaid charges on property tax. Well, this authority gave us the an alternative to shutting off water to our customers. And if you recall, I think most of you are involved with that effort. That was a response to the economic crisis that was caused by the 2008 real estate crash. Well, today we are, navigating through another crisis, and COVID really have underscored the importance of maintaining water service for all residential customers. With that said, I will be presenting to the board a new collection strategy that would maintain a basic level of service for customers that are facing shutoff, but also offer a clear signal on the delinquent status. Okay, I'm on slide 2. So here's our agenda for today. I will review with the board our delinquency trends, as Clifford had pointed out, both pre-COVID and during the pandemic, our current process in managing delinquencies, some key considerations for both the district and the customers after the lift of the executive order from the governor, and then a balanced alternative to address delinquencies for the board's consideration. And of course, the next step to advance that recommendation with your approval. So I'm on slide number 3. So before I start, I just want to offer this slide as a backdrop for this presentation. And many of you are aware that the Assembly Bill 685 was enacted in 2012 to express that water is a human right. And the statute also declared as a policy of the state that every human being has the right to safe, clean, affordable, and access to water adequate for human consumption, cooking, and sanitation. But before Assembly Bill 685, there was Proposition 218, passed in 1996, to require that all public utility not to charge customers fees that is more than the cost of service. So essentially, we have to pay for the service that's delivered, and that no one group can subsidize another. And it has been our goal to find an approach to maintain water service to all residential customers that meets both of those objectives. So since COVID, the district has been very carefully monitoring our delinquency data. And in fact, we look at this on a daily basis to really understand what the impacts it's having to our customers and community. For about almost now 7 months into the shut-off moratorium issued by the state, this is what we know so far. The number of delinquency for all type of accounts, both commercial and residential, during COVID have not increased. Looking at the numbers, they hovering around 21,000 or so on a monthly basis. And then about 98% of those customers, again, both residential and commercial, are paying their bill or making some type of arrangement with the district to make payments. And then about 90% of those payments are being received on time by the district. So moving on, breaking the data out just to single family residential accounts. Delinquencies for this account has not increased also. And comparing to prior years, the monthly average number is actually slightly lower. If you look at the numbers, in 2020, our current average is about 18,700 or so, compared to just above 19,000 in past years. And of the 331,000 single-family residential accounts in our service area, more than 94% of them are making their payment on time. And that is a very remarkable number. And we have to really thank our customers for being responsive. So moving on to slide number 6. So while our overall delinquency rate remain consistent, one significant change in the number of single-family residential accounts reaching shut-off status has more than doubled. So that is a different number that we're also tracking. Pre-COVID, historically, our monthly average of single-family accounts that have reached the shut-off status is approximately 2,000 to 3,000. But since COVID, that number obviously has increased. Now, I do want to point out that less than 30% of those 2,000 to 3,000 customers have reached that status were actually shut off. And that's because 70% of them actually call the district and make arrangements to avoid that final step. So following the shut-off moratorium issued by the governor, we did notice a sharp increase in those number of accounts that reach shut-off status. And that increase came around April and May, as you can see in that graph. And but since then, it has remained fairly steady. We're hovering around 7,000 or so on a rolling average monthly basis. And because we are in the state of a moratorium of shutoffs, we were really not comparing apples to apples when we look at the data, because we really don't know how many of those 7,000 customers are in that status would actually end up getting shut off or not choose to make arrangement with the district when we get to that point. So more data. The district has over, like I said, 7,000 single family accounts that reached the shut-off status as of mid-October. And this number changes on a daily basis, of course. And of the 7,000 accounts, nearly 3,700 of them are in the shut-off status for the very first time. And nearly 2,400 of those accounts actually have not paid a bill since March 12, which is the date that we issue our own suspension for shutoffs.
So Andrew, just to back up for a second, you're saying that of these 3,700 that are in shutoff status for the first time, that 2,400 of those have not made a payment since March 12th, or just overall?
So the 3,700 is a subset of the 7,000, and so is the 2,400. It's a subset of the 7,000.
Okay, but they're not. One isn't of the other. There's some overlap.
Correct. There's an overlap.
Okay.
So part of that 2,400 would fit the subcategory of the 3,700, if you know what I'm mean by it. So there's overlap. So again, back to the data, there are 154 of those accounts actually went into shut-off status for more than 10 times. But we have always been finding ways to help those customers restore service, either by making payment arrangements, putting them on cap, or helping them get on payment plans. Now, when customers reach that shut-off status, we do send multiple payment reminders, including our cap material and information about our other payment programs and extensions to help keep their water service on. So that is something that we're committed to do and will continue to do. So I'm going to move on to slide number 8, and that's a set of maps here. I'm sure the board knows by now I love map, and I love using GIS data to really help us make really informed decisions on how we advance ideas. So here are 2 maps comparing the locations of the actual delinquent accounts that have reached shut-off status from really 2 time periods. To your left is a map of what the pre-COVID condition looked like. And of course, to the right is a map of what things look like now in October. So looking at this map kind of carefully, there are some key takeaways that I want to share. Each of the black dots that you see represents an account that is in shut-off status. And then the varying shade of red is actually represent the income level in our community. So as you can see, the pattern is pretty clear. It's all within the same community, but you can see, to the map to your right is that there's a whole lot more black dots now in October. And more importantly, though, more than 55% of those black dots are actually accounts in the shut-off status located in disadvantaged communities. So we have an existing process to manage delinquencies. And of course, shut-off is also a collection strategy that used by utilities to manage their financial health. And the district has been using that practice to manage our own delinquencies as well. Overall, the district does not discontinue service until a bill is delinquent for more than 96 days. And typically, our overdue process does not even start until 60 days after the bill is issued. And prior to the shutoff, the customer would have received multiple notifications by mail. And then we actually go an extra step by visiting the home, and we hand deliver a door hanger so they know that they need to make arrangement with the district before a shutoff is coming.
Andrew, could I just ask, when you actually go out to the door, do you just leave a door hanger? Does somebody actually knock on the door or try to make contact with anyone there?
We normally would knock on the door and leave a door hanger. At least that's what we do before. But now, of course, with the moratorium, we don't do that anymore. Mm-hmm. We end up changing our communication strategy. We do a lot more mailing and notifications, just informing the customers there's a number of programs they can participate in to help pay their bill. But before, yes, we do that. So again, in all of our outreach material that we send to our customers, it has a lot of information about CAP, payment plans, and even other programs like our conservation tools, as well as water quality tools, really help them stay connected and what we have to offer to help them manage their water use as well as their water bill. And now, we do sometimes get to step number 6, where we do end up discontinue water services after the customer become unresponsive to all of those attempts that we made to connect with them, right? And just as a reminder for the group, is that the district regulations on the shutoff was recently updated to meet the requirement of Senate Bill 998. And that update was reviewed with the board during the last CAP workshop. So moving on to slide number 10. But then in March, obviously, everything changed. The district suspended shutoff activities in response to COVID. And our early action was reinforced by the governor's April 2nd order to suspend all shutoff in California. But in addition, East Bay MUD also took action to restore service to nearly 500 accounts, so they have access to water during the pandemic. We also intensify our messaging to customers and outreach to our customers, make sure they know about CAP. And because of this very, very targeted effort by a lot of hard work in the district, that we currently have about over 8,100 active participants on our program. And going back to Sophia's presentation, that is a 16 to 70% jump in our participation rate. Typically, we see about 4 to 5% increase in a year. We got that, we had that big increase in less than 6-7 months. So we also know that the executive order from the governor is a temporary order, and it could be rescinded any time. And then we do need a strategy in terms of addressing delinquencies and shutoff going forward. So going forward, so when the order is lifted, the district will have to make a decision on how to manage our delinquency process, right? And if we return to business as usual, looking at the numbers, there could be as many as 7,000 residential customers that could be impacted that are really in the shutoff status. So that is a pretty big number right there. But more importantly, most of the affected customers will be those in our disadvantaged communities. So with COVID highlighting the importance of maintaining a basic level of service to customers for sanitation, a new strategy is needed to address shutoffs and delinquencies. So that said, we did identify the flow restrictor as an alternative that can be used to maintain a basic level of service to customers while sending a clear signal about their past due bills. So the question is, what is a flow restrictor? Well, it's a device that restricts the amount of water that entering the home. And if you look very carefully at the photo to the right, the flow restrictor is actually that little round metal plate with that little tiny opening with the blue arrow pointing downward to it. It's like a little copper plate. This is a device, actually, it was manufactured by the district in a meter shop. And basically by installing that little device in the meter, the inlet on the meter, it restricts how much water goes into the home, and we can control how much water that goes into the home. Obviously, we need a minimum amount to make sure the meter will actually work, because we need a certain amount of flow that go past the meter in order for us to capture what the water use in that device.
Andrew, this is John Coleman. Quick question. Is it,
Yes,
how easy is it or difficult is it to manipulate the flow restrictor once it's installed?
It would be more difficult by the way that it's designed right now, because you literally have to take the assembly off in order to take that plate off. This is intentionally designed that way, that we want to insert that and incorporate it as part of the meter built out. So it will be a little bit more challenging. You definitely need to have a pretty good skill in plumbing to be able to do something like to manipulate it.
Thank you.
We will have to address that, of course, if those type of issues come up. And I will talk about that in the later slides. So we do have actually flow restrictors in use in the past. And we typically use those in past droughts to really manage customers who have a very bad pattern of wasteful use of water. And we do have regulations in place right now to give us authority to use a flow restrictor. But of course, that authority has to be expanded to include the device as part of our overall collection strategy. And the device itself has been used to address delinquencies in other countries. Yarra Valley Water in Australia has been using the flow restrictor to manage their delinquencies for almost 20 years now. And they have found this device is effective. So I have some video to share with the board because, of course, we want to understand how this thing works and how it actually it can be applied in really daily life of a customer. And to help us understand how it works, we actually installed a flow restrictor at the homes of 2 district employees. They actually are volunteers. They weren't told to do it. And here are some videos documenting that test. So I'm going to try to click on one of the videos. Hopefully it will work, because the last time I tried it, it was kind of choppy. So this is a flow restrictor installed at a home, and the employee is trying to use it in their bathroom sink. As you can see, when it first starts, the flow comes out okay, but then it slowly gets reduced down to basically by the design of what that little tiny hole that you see in a flow restrictor allow in terms of the amount of water that enters the home. So that is the bathroom. And I'm going to go to another video to see the kitchen sink, because those are probably the most 2 frequent use activities when you are at a home. So same thing. You can see that when a pipe is charged, you will get a good amount of flow at the beginning, and then it trickles down to this lower flow here. And the shower, if you want to see it, I'd be happy to show that, but it's actually, the shower is probably the most effective appliance in the house when it comes to the flow restrictor. So, yeah.
Yeah, show it.
Okay.
I'd like to see it in the shower.
Might as well. So this is the shower. It will be difficult to take a good shower, but there's enough water to do some general sanitation needs. So those are the 3 videos. I have others, but I thought those are the most representative type of video to show the board. So what did we learn from this?
Could you comment on the toilet functionality?
The toilet, it will allow you to flush, but after you flush, it definitely take a longer time to fill it up. So what it, typically you fill a toilet in about a minute, a minute or so after you use. But now with the flow restrictor, we did observe it take a lot longer to actually get the whole tank filled up. Does it answer your question, Director Katz?
Yes, thanks.
Okay, great. So what did we learn from this video? Well, the device is able to effectively control and restrict the surface level to around about 0.4 gallons per minute and allow the meter to operate properly. And as designed, the device provides enough water for cooking, cleaning, hand washing, and also provide the customer a reliable source of drinking water.
Andrew,
Yes.
just a question. So you have that hole drilled at a 0.4 gallon per minute, but if we're fabricating this in our shop, we could increase it to 0.6 gallons, and that would have a measurable impact on, because the shower, I don't know. Thinking about people with kids in the house and stuff like that. But we could, the 0.4 is arbitrary, is what I'm asking, or is it?
0.4 was something that was discussed because we need a certain amount of flow to get through a meter to make sure that the meter works properly.
Right.
Andrew?
I'm sorry?
Andrew, I'll just quickly add, 0.4 was what Yarra Valley was using. And then for an entirely different purpose, we were checking with some other utilities and they were at 0.5. So, we're in that range of 0.4, 0.5. If you made it a little larger to 0.6, really the goal is to send a signal, but allow them enough water. So we can certainly play around with the size of the hole.
Okay.
Yeah. And that will actually also change too, depending on where the location of the home to the reservoir, because of course, the pressure and flow coming from the reservoirs, that proximity could change some of the conditions and the endpoints. So,
yeah, we should make sure that we test it at the places where we have the lowest pressure to make sure that those, in disadvantaged communities with the lowest pressure, right, to make sure that they're getting water out of their faucet.
Yeah, I think the most impacted area, if you're talking about flow restrictors, are the customers that are in the hills where you have a lot of gradation. If we're talking about in the lower level, lower elevation area, the impact would be a little bit different because you have reservoirs. Obviously, you have enough elevation to deliver water and pressure to the location.
Yeah, and I was thinking actually about places like Rodeo and Crockett where it's not flatlands, but you have disadvantaged communities, and parts of East Oakland, frankly, are pretty hilly as well.
Got it. So here are the videos from our field test, and then we did get feedback from our volunteers is that it definitely sent a very clear signal. And action is needed to address delinquency. So that's one thing we learned from this exercise. Okay, I'm moving on to slide number 14. So while adding flow restrictors to address delinquency obviously involves some careful planning, and then there are also other considerations. First, we need to have proper messaging to help customers understand really what the purpose of the flow restrictor. We also want to have proper and clear notification to customers before the installation, because ultimately we want to avoid it as much as we can, and to do that we want to continue to focus on assisting impacted customers through CAP and other district programs, because obviously the more we can avoid it, the less impact the customer will be dealing with. And if the device does get installed, the customer may experience the different type of flow and pressure, like we just talked about earlier, because just depending on where the home is located and where the reservoir is located. So we have to take a closer look at that. There will be a cost to install the flow restrictor, and the cost would be likely to be charged to the customer. The cost range between $127 and $273. And though most will cost about $127 because a majority of our meter sizes are between 5/8 to 1 inch. The $273 are for the larger 1.5 to 2 inch meters. So another consideration.
Andrew, do single family homes have 1.5 inch meters?
In some cases, they do. A lot of newer homes do have it because of the dual fire services, but they are not.
Those aren't homes in disadvantaged communities, so.
Those are newer homes that would be built after 2010. So though, because of the change in the state regulation that require sprinkler system in the homes that were built after 2010.
And that could, Marguerite, be in people who are disadvantaged for whatever reason. They could be renting a home or something else.
Yeah. But I think typically it won't be those folks. Okay.
Okay. So there are, obviously we need to change and update our regulations, policies, procedures, even existing workflow, and aligning resources needs to make sure this thing can be executed and implemented in the field. So additional considerations, of course, we want to make sure that the flow restrictor it's an additional step in the collection process, and it is not a debt forgiveness program. And we must also adhere to the requirement of Prop 218, where all customers are responsible to pay for the service that was delivered. Shut-off will continue to be used in some circumstances, especially when customers are tampering with the device to restore the water to normal flow. And for cases where customers are engaging in water theft activities, and also when they are creating a situation where there's a threat to public health, meaning that they have they're creating a supply of water from their own residents and it gets feedback to the public water system. In those cases, we would immediately shut off the water. So there are some potential added financial exposures to the district by using the flow restrictor to address delinquency. And generally, the exposure is due to the level of uncertainty around how many more accounts will end up in the shut-off status by the end of the moratorium, of course. And then also how responsive customers will be to the device itself. In other words, that you may see customers that are completely okay with having a flow restrictor installed instead of trying to make arrangement to pay their delinquent bill. And looking at our current data as of October, our total exposures from single family accounts in the shut-off status is about $5.6 million. Now, the district have always carried some level of exposure from customers who either reached the shut-off status or in a write-off status. And that's the amount that we are unable to collect. So pre-COVID, our exposure is approximately between $2 to $3 million. So doing some simple math here, just looking at current October data, we're talking about an added exposure at $2.6 million. But there are some steps that I'm going to talk about in the next slide to address those exposures and how to manage that. So on slide number 17, to minimize our exposure, we will begin with good notification and a lot of reminders on past due payments. Those typically address a good percentage of customers in delinquency, which we have learned. This step will likely to prompt a lot of customers to pay before the device is installed. But then the device, after it's installed, it will be the tool itself to compel payment from customers. And of course, that would address a small fraction of that population. And for accounts that remain unresponsive to the flow restrictor, we can take one or two options. One, for those out of that 1,400 owner-occupied accounts that are unresponsive, we can use our current lien authority to collect directly from their property tax bill. And we have a very good recovery rate. We have up to a 90% recovery rate using that strategy, just looking at our current multifamily lien program. So that itself, if you're looking at $1.2 million, that would yield about $1 to $1.1 million through that collection process. Now we could also use a third-party vendor to collect from renters who are unresponsive. So looking at 5,625 renters potentially, it has a smaller yield. Typically using the third-party vendor, we recover about 20 to 24%. And then, but also we do have to pay for the third-party vendor to make that collection call.
Right, you're talking about a collection agency.
Correct. Right. We do have one of those.
Yeah.
So I'm going to pause here for a little bit,
just at that, just on the collection process. So when we turn that debt over to a collector, they're basically paying. They pay us. They basically bid on the debt, and they say we'll give you 30 cents on the dollar, and we say yes or no or whatever. It's a contract. At that point, that debt is no longer ours. It belongs to the collection agency. Is that correct?
Correct. That's the concept, and we actually get better return on that than 30%.
Well, yeah.
We get about 80. We get 82% on the dollar.
Okay. So
it's pretty significant.
Okay. But that's helpful to know, is that it's not our debt any longer once we do that.
And on an annual basis, I mean, we do have write-off. So I think on an average basis, I think we write off about, I'm looking at numbers behind me, about $1.9 million that we assign to the third-party vendor to collect for us. So like I said earlier, that we always gonna have some liability exposures regardless we have a shut-off or no shut-off. So so here's the what we're gonna do next is that we are gonna bring forward a resolution with the following principles and actions. I'm just gonna pause for a minute. I'm not gonna go through word by word, what those 5 principles are. But if you have any questions or you wanna provide feedback to those, be happy to take those as we develop the resolution for our next board meeting when I bring this back to the board in November.
Andrew, is this going to go to the Finance or Ledge Committee at all? Or is it just being done via the board this way?
Good question.
So, Director Coleman, we are bringing this to the full board to take a look at and provide all this information because we know this is an important issue and we want to give an opportunity for the entire board to comment on this.
Oh, I don't disagree, Clifford. This is important for the entire board to be apprised on. But generally speaking, the committees are used, at least as a sounding board, and it wouldn't delay necessarily. I mean, if the committee were to address this in November, we'd still have it in place before 2021. That's just a thought. I don't know. Maybe it doesn't matter.
I mean, I think that we could have it the resolution go to finance at the next, the November board meeting, and then come to us in our December, come to the full board in December. I think that would be fine. I think that the sooner that we can address this and start getting the word out to our customers to, understand what it will mean when the, I say party because it's no party for people that can't afford to pay for their water, but the sooner that we're messaging to our customers that here's our plan. You're in this status now. Your water won't be shut off here's what we're, here messaging this, I think, is important as we move into, the future, because we don't know when the governor, when this EO will end, but we do know that there's a massive wave of, folks that it will apply to. So I'm, personally, I'm very supportive of, this approach. I actually hope it lights the way for other water agencies that are trying to figure this out as well. And I applaud all the work that Andrew and finance and legal have done to look at how we can approach this opportunity to recognize the human right to water while still maintaining our financial duty and our requirements under Prop 218 and the MUD Act and and et cetera. So I also want to make sure that our staff has the opportunity to have the time to put in place the procedures that'll be necessary to implement this. But I think delaying it by 2 weeks in order to allow it to go to finance committee, it's probably, that's fine.
Yeah, I'm not looking, Marguerite, as a delay. I think the goal should be when the board approves this, which I suspect they will, is it takes effect probably January 1 of 2021. So clearly it has to get done in ample time for all the regulatory and legal issues that we have to address.
And we have a lot of legal issues to address here because, a flow restrictor, it can be argued, and it will be argued, is still a water shutoff if you can't properly bathe. And from the examples that Andrew showed us, you can't properly bathe. We're heading in a direction that is going to be fraught with legal challenges, and I just hope we're ready for that. And then adding an additional charge for the cost of the flow restrictor onto an already delinquent bill. I'm just saying, you guys, it's going to be an uphill battle.
So we all can, Andrew, can you go through the charges that we've been, I think we need to look at what the other.
I don't need them again. Yeah, I don't need them again. I'll wait until this comes back to us, but I'm just alerting everyone who's not already alerted that this is going to be challenged.
Right. I can't see.
I share the same concern, not as Director McIntosh, not necessarily the overall legal concern, because my general reaction to this is that this is a way to get back to better than normal. A flow restrictor seems to be a better resolution to a delinquent charge than a complete shutoff, except for the issue of the permanent charge of the flow restrictor that we would be passing on to the customer. That is significant. It's a much larger charge than the delinquent shutoff charge and restoration charge would be. So that's the issue that frustrates me the most, and I'd like to think about solutions to that. And maybe we can handle it best with robust outreach and notice. If our notice is proper and we're providing very conspicuous notice after the emergency, I don't think that kind of notice would be feasible. Of course, we're not considering this before the end of the emergency. I think that this could be better than normal. I have concerns about the large charge for the flow restrictor and how we handle outreach and notice, and I'd like to work on that more in committee. I'm not sure what the effect of a resolution is. A resolution is not board policy. We're providing informal board direction now. I don't have major problems with the very broad brush points in these bullets here, if that's the basis for a resolution. But I also question what the purpose of it is, because it's short of board policy. So I do think we should discuss this more either in a committee setting and then again before the board.
Well, Andy, if you go to the finance committee next time, like we had this morning, you can raise a lot of those issues.
So, Andrew, it would be helpful if you could run through the current charges, you know, sort of like how does this, because it's a big range in terms of the flow restrictor installation charge, you know, from it's like 100%, you know, different from the low end to what the charges are that people we currently are implementing on or had been implementing on people that are shut off to reconnect, and whether there are offsets there, and what other because this is one side of the debt collection, but then there's also how do we you know, how are we managing payment plans and other things, because there are going to be people that have, you know, large amounts, very large amounts of debt or bill payment owing when this is implemented. So there's a sort of a run out of how that might play out if somebody's put into cap, et cetera. You know, there's the idea that we've had in the past of retroactive cap, et cetera.
Yeah. Well, I mean, the board definitely raised a lot of good questions and brought up a lot of good concerns about this approach. And of course, we've been thinking a lot about it. There are obviously some, you know, a lot of benefits in terms of extending minimum level service. And but we also do acknowledge that there's a lot more work for us to do in order for us to have a plan in place. And part of this resolution and principle in action is really to get the direction from the board to say, let's look at this more carefully so we can come back to the board in the next CAP workshop to talk about a comprehensive strategy, how to roll this thing out. And that would be the time. It basically gives us staff the next few months to really look at this in depth, what it means, you know, that 0.4 gallons, what it means by, and then also looking at the fee structure for those. Now, the fee structure I shared, that 127 to 273, those are used during, those are existing rate that is already established by the district from a while back when we used those to manage drought situations. But of course, this is an opportunity for us to relook at that fee structure and see what we come up with as part of the study. So I'm sharing with you right now what I found on the regulations itself, but obviously there's a lot of work to do. And you can see a number of considerations that I listed in the past 2 slides. And that's only scratching some of the surface stuff that we have to look at. There's a whole lot more that we have to take a deeper look at to make sure that we do it right. Going back to Director McIntosh's concerns about the legal aspect of it, we are going to engage in conversations with legal, and of course we have been to make sure we do this thing right, and it's not something that we're going to go out with a bang and finish with the, you know, dizzle. And
so just to be clear, would us coming to the Finance Committee next time and then coming to the first meeting in December for the resolution give you enough time to develop what you need to develop for the CAP workshop in January, or?
It'll be a little tight because the CAP workshop is the first meeting in February. December, so essentially I have 8 weeks to develop a full plan.
So,
Marguerite, can I interject real quick? I apologize. Yeah. My aunt is literally going to be dying in a few minutes, so I'm going to get off the call and go visit her.
Oh, gosh. Very sorry to hear that, John.
Thank you. I'm going to go.
Okay.
Godspeed, John.
Well, so
So
is there a
President
way
Young,
that it goes to the finance, that there's a resolution that goes to the finance committee and then comes to the board the same day?
President Young. So
Yeah.
I think we have some good feedback right now that we can work with. And there is another workshop on the second board meeting in November. That's our SEC workshop. So we'll have to look at the scheduling and the timing to see if we can fit that in. But we can, of course, start working on some of the feedback. We knew going into this that it wasn't going to be easy, which is why nobody has really done it in this country. But that's why we spent so much time talking about it and thinking about this.
Oh, wait, we have 2 board members in November.
We do. The finance committee is in the second board
The second
meeting.
one.
And so we have
Right.
the SEC workshop, the second meeting, we have the infrastructure workshop on the 10th. But let us take the feedback that we have and work on that going forward so that we can either bring a resolution or have the discussion at the finance committee in November and bring a resolution in December, or try to do it that same day.
Okay.
I have a few comments I wanted to make.
Yeah,
before
go
we-
Doug. I haven't been able, because of the slides, I haven't been able to see everybody on the Zoom screen. Go ahead.
Yeah, so I think this is definitely going in the right direction. I like it. I do think it's a breakthrough way of thinking about it. I'm very concerned with what Lisa brought up. I thought the same thing when I saw the shower, especially. It just doesn't look like it's a functional shower at that flow. Obviously it's a hard balance between sending the signal, as we said, creating a hardship, if you will, to have them deal with it. My understanding is that what we're really trying to do is get their attention and say, hey, we need you to deal with this one way or another, whether you join the CAP program or find a set of payments or something to do it. So I don't think we should be viewing this as as something that someone would just kind of try and, keep their head down and ignore our reaching our hand out to help them in some way, and that this is a sustainable type thing. And so maybe that's okay. I don't know, but I do kind of think that there's some more things that need to be worked out. But we're definitely this is an improvement. Again, if you put a side by side of a complete water shutoff versus what we're proposing here, I think it's a significant difference. And yeah, there's legal issues or whatever that we need to work out, but there's problems with the system that we have right now. I think no matter what, this is an improvement. So I encourage you to keep working it through, and I hope that you're also reaching out and talking to some of our friends at Swap How about what they think about this, how they might react to it, and get some sense of that. So it's not just us trying to figure this out, but really those who are, on the front lines, if you will, of trying to deal with members of the community and our customers who are having their water shut off and having to deal with this.
And I also know that the Pacific Institute and Clean Water Action would welcome the opportunity to review and comment on the proposal as well, because they've both been working on this topic on a policy level.
Well, thank you for the feedback. So really the last slide here is the next steps, but obviously we're gonna do some tweaks here because of, we're gonna introduce the topic back to the finance committee, and then we'll probably bring the resolution then back to the board for consideration at another time. And again, the plan was actually have a direction, get direction from the board, and to develop a plan and present that plan to the board during the CAP workshop.
Yeah, I'd still love us to try to be on track for that. So be good if we could try to work through these issues on that. Okay. So Clifford, do you have more on your general manager's report?
Nothing else for the GM report. I appreciate all the feedback.
Okay. So we're now on to reports and director comments. Committee reports, item 17, minutes from the October 13th Planning and Legislative Human Resources Committee meetings were included in the agenda packet for today. And now we're going to turn to reports from Sustainability and the Finance Committee. Doug, do you want to give the Sustainability report?
Yeah, this morning we met for talk about four different items, got reports on our emissions update, as well as 3 other items, and can't think of anything else relevant to point out.
Okay. And from Finance, Director Patterson, do you have a report for us? You might be on mute.
He's actually, it looks like he's on a phone call. He has some things that he's dealing with at home as well. So he is on mute.
Director Katz, as the sole remaining member of the Finance Committee, can you report?
I understand that the committee received reports about the district's financial status, and it looks like Director Patterson is back at the screen.
Okay. Director Patterson, could you report? Oh no, he's still on the phone. We will skip it.
President Young, do you want us to just go through the agenda? We have that information available, if that's okay.
Sure, that would be great.
The Finance Committee met this morning and received an update on the financial review of fiscal year 2020, an update on fiscal year 2020 key performance indicators, the quarterly financial reports, the monthly investment transaction report, and the Water Infrastructure Finance and Innovation Act Loan Letter of Interest, WIFIA, and an update on the fiscal year 2020 annual power sales report.
Packed agenda. Okay.
Could I ask, I'm sorry, I've meant to ask this either offline or online before. The purpose of these reports at the end, we haven't always done these in past years, but we have been doing it for some time. What is the purpose of it?
The purpose is we started doing them, we started doing them when we were having very brief regular meetings in order to, I think, as we moved into a venue where we're now providing audio recordings of our meetings and video, soon video, I don't know if we're doing that yet, video recordings of our meetings to let people know that committees meet in the morning and what they cover. I think as part of, more public communication, right? We don't record or video those meetings, but the notes end up being, and presentation notes end up being available,
Is it useful just to read the 4 items that we covered, or should there be some
it'd be better to have a report on what happened. In this case, Director well, looks like Director Patterson is now available, but John had to leave.
Yeah, I'm available.
Do you want to, did you want to
Frank,
give?
I'm just sorry, Frank, do you
Yeah.
have a comment on this particular question I
as I
have? Because I'm still not
recall-
sure if I've gotten the
As I
answer I was
recall,
looking
this
for.
came out of one of the grand jury things that
Hmm.
criticized us for just having a report attached to the end, whereas the suggestion was we should, in fact, as part, because it happened as a regular meeting, we should report it as part of the full board. And that's what my recollection is.
Can I
Yeah,
provide some
this-
clarification? This is Risha.
Yes.
Okay, the request for the committees to report out actually came from President
John.
Young. Actually, it came from President Young.
I think it was John's suggestion and I concurred with it.
Okay, and it was so that again, as President Young stated, so that the public would know that we have committee meetings in the morning. We were having 15 and 20-minute board meetings, but the board was actually meeting for a few hours in the morning at the committees. And President Young, we're actually live streaming and recording the committee meetings. We've been doing that since we started
Oh, we are
Zoom.
now. Okay.
Yes, so we are live streaming the committee meetings, the public portion of closed session, and the regular board meeting. And then they're posted
Okay.
on the website.
Okay. So I guess what I would say is that I'd like to continue them for this year. And when the new president next year takes office, they can decide how they'd like to proceed on that. But it is new. Since we are now live streaming the committee meetings, maybe we don't really, need to do that. But the point is, I think, to
I'm
share
not
the
arguing
information.
whether to do it or not. I just want to do it in the proper way, and I always seem to be kind of, I don't think that we've had this much discussion about it that I can recall as to what we're doing. And I can read the agenda items, or I can kind of drone on about the things that I thought were interesting, or whatever, but I just not clear on what the purpose was. So
I think it would be good to hear a little, I mean, for my benefit, it's much more alive to hear what happened in the meeting on some kind of summary basis than to read action items in minutes, which are usually relatively, scanty. And as much as I might think it would be cool to go back and listen to the live stream of the whole committee meeting, I'm unlikely to do that unless there's, something. I did go back actually and listen to the discussion of the energy policy. So.
All right, well, that's very helpful. I think reporting out so that the rest of the board knows, and obviously the public as well, in some way, what we covered in the meeting in the morning. That's a good idea.
I agree.
Okay.
So should I give it another try?
Lisa says no.
Lisa has her mute on, but I distinctly heard her say no.
Well, Lisa's the let's be done with it queen. So,
All right, I'll try next time.
are.
As chair of both the planning committee and the sustainability committee, I'll keep working on my skills to keep it both succinct and interesting.
Okay, that's a
I'll
deal
practice
for
on my
next
own.
time. For next time. Bill, did you want to give us a succinct but exciting report from the finance committee? I don't know if that's possible, but
Well, we had a
the exciting part, I mean.
We had a very interesting meeting, and in our financial review of 2020, actually it came out painting a very good picture of East Bay MUD and their financials. As you know, we also posted financials in 2 newspapers last month. I think the key thing, though, is to know that we finished almost every category, and we underspent in those areas. Not underspent, but we didn't go over the projected for the period, which gives us some carryover money coming into the new year. Some of the things that you just got through talking about might be covered by that. I'm saying that's the interesting part. But we've been on top of expenditures. The staff has been. COVID has delayed us from doing certain things. And we need to know that management strategy as well. And I think the staff's done a great job of keeping up with that. Our fiscal year 2020 key performance indicator also, it really gave us an idea to see, are we close? Are we behind? Or where are we? The good news is that those indicators indicate that we are up to snuff all the way through. There's only one category that we were lax in, and that's caused for a reason that they can clear up next time around. I think the quarterly financial reports, those were all up to par. And they really tell us the story because they tell us whether we're balanced or not, or whether we're out of line with anything. And those come forward to you for final approval. Monthly investment transactions report. They give us an idea of all of our monthly transactions and where everything is, line by line. Water Infrastructure Finance and Innovation Act loan letter of interest. We have applied, or will be applying for $908 million for Water Infrastructure and Innovation Act business at EBMUD. And this is in lieu of the cost of bonds. Bonds cost us much more money. This thing has been reduced down by the federal government to be much below the margin we would have to pay otherwise, and frees up some money for larger projects we may come into. The fiscal year 2020 annual power sales report. Naturally, that's down, but it's understood why. This gives us a clear picture to pass on to the full board of where we are with respect to our finances. It also conveys to the public that we are an agency that is very concerned about staying within its limits and delivering the best product for the buck. That's in a nutshell what we did today, Madam President. I'm enthusiastic about it, and I hope other board members take it that way.
Thank you, Director Patterson. Our last item is please submit any items for future consideration to the general manager. Are there other director comments? I don't see anybody waving their hand, so we will adjourn to our first meeting in November on November 10th. Hopefully we'll all be in a good mood as a result of recent events that will have transpired between now and then. Everyone. And I hope all of you are trying to make that happen in the best way that you can.
I voted.
Whatever it is that might be.
I voted.
Okay. Right. Do more than that.